Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's World of Learning webinar. Today's session is brought to you in partnership with I Am Learning, and will be about building a learning culture from the ground up. In today's session, we're joined by Steph Charlesworth from I Am Learning and Steve Rose from Gregory Distributions. They'll be talking about how Gregory Distribution uses I Am Learning courses and other platforms to deliver a multi-format learning. Just before I hand it over, just to let you know, the chat function is open and encourage you to get involved throughout the session. If you have any questions, Steve and Steph will have time at the end, so please submit via the Q&A function, which you should see at the bottom of your screen. So without further ado, I'll hand it over. Steph and Steve.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming along this afternoon. Quick introductions. So my name is Steph. I am Head of Success at I Am Learning. I have been here for just shy of 4 years now, and we're an off-the-shelf e-learning company using animation and storytelling to make learning and training fun and engaging and a little bit different. Steve, do you want to start by introducing yourself?
Sure, yeah. My name's Steve Rose. I'm the Group L&D Manager at Gregory Distribution. I've been here for just about 11 years now. And prior to that, I started my career as a driver, van driver, then became a lorry driver, and then became a trainer of drivers, and then came here to manage training or driver training originally, and then I've become qualified and expanded into a little bit more of learning development over that time.
Fantastic. So it's all about you today, Steve and Gregory, and how you guys have built a training, built your sort of learning approach.
Yeah.
As mentioned, we're probably going to talk for about half an hour, and then we are really hoping that you will ask us lots of questions if you've come along today about how Steve has done what he's done, or if you've got any questions for me as well. We'll switch to questions about past. So if we can. Please feel free to drop them into the chat during the session.
Yes, please.
But I am going to start with an easy one, Steve.
Brilliant.
Could you just start by giving me an overview of how you guys approach learning and development at Gregory?
Okay, so how do we approach learning development? So multi-format, as already introduced, really. Primarily, most of our training is training. So primarily it's operational training. So we are a transport logistics business with 3,500 employees. The vast majority of those will be drivers, and then probably people that work in warehouses, and then there are around about 900 to 1,000 people who we class as IT users, and they could be anybody from directors down through to managers, planners in operations. So we have to approach each part of that in a slightly different way, and they all have different demographics and accessibility issues along the way as well. So a large proportion of what we do is on the job coaching and developing of our drivers and our warehouse ops, and then we do some more traditional kind of L&D leadership and management with our managers, supervisors within the business.
Thank you. Okay, so I know that obviously we are part of your infrastructure rather than everything. So
yeah.
From an e-learning perspective, how do you fit that into the busy workloads of everybody?
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess we should probably start at the beginning, I suppose. So
yeah.
Just after COVID, or so before COVID, actually, if we speak about before COVID, is that we're a very traditional family-run business. We're not a corporate business, and most things were done in person, face-to-face, in rooms, meetings, training, whatever. After COVID, during COVID, we became very used to then starting to work with Skype and Teams. So we started to become more used to having calls like this. And I went to the World of Learning exhibition in London. I think it was in 2021 or 2022, and saw I Am, and saw you guys, and was really interested in, perhaps as a business we needed to utilize this format to do some of our training. So learning a little bit more about the different e-learning options out there, I found that I Am was one of the ones that kind of just captured me, because of the way that you use storytelling and your characters, and like it was the popular culture as well you use within the stories. So we could see that I thought sort of, it has caught me. So I was naively, maybe I thought that would catch everybody, but we might come on to that in a little bit. But it's certainly the short storytelling I thought was a interesting way of us being able to get some training out to a large majority of the workforce, so our IT based workforce, and that's where we came upon looking to use e-learning. We were quite naive about it to start with, though.
So yes, let's get into it. Let's get into
it. Yes,
let's get into it. Yeah. So obviously, when you initially started rolling out your e-learning, obviously you saw the benefit. You were sort of, you understand it. Did you go for an all-out approach, or did you go, let's just start with one and see how we go? How did you deliver your e-learning initially, shall we say?
Well, it's like any new shiny bright toy. Just think, we're just going to use this, and this, and so I started to kind of create kind of groups and reasons why people needed to use it, and so started to create some kind of big groups to say, well, everybody needs to complete these, all of these courses. You've got 4 courses a month, and kind of off you go and go off and complete them. I mean, over time we've refined that quite a bit, but yeah, I mean, I suppose that's probably how most people do it when they're starting from literally nothing.
Yes. Yeah, I guess it's always interesting when you're sort of starting with that blank slate of this is how we want to do things. And I think it's interesting, maybe sort of a couple of things you've tried over the years where you've said, actually, that has worked, but we want to evolve it now into something new based off how you've evolved as a company as well.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, how many years have we been with I Am now? Must be 3 or maybe 4 now. So 4, yeah. So we're learning, and we've learned a lot about how we introduce e-learning into our employees, a much more structured way. Although in one way, we have freedom, so we deselect some of the courses in our space. We don't really need some of the courses more directed for kind of educational purposes, but we do allow all of our users to access all a vast majority of the content. But what we do now, we're not trying to kind of force feed, like 4 courses a month and trying to get through that. What we're trying to do is signpost through our different processes and policies of how the e-learning accompanies some of those and is required for some of those structures. So yeah, we've kind of really evolved how we use it.
Yes, and I think obviously having all courses available from the office probably not the best idea, but obviously over time, as people have become used to the online platform and how to get to the training, and they know where to go, and obviously you're linking it to, this is how it applies to us at Gregory as well. You're not necessarily just sort of letting people choose to do learning, because I mean I would love it if we lived in a world where people went, you know what, I'm going to do some training today, but I'm sure you probably don't have that kind of culture.
No, I bet if we really looked at it, think we'd be surprised, and we would see how some people just chose often to do some courses, but like any other organization, especially in this industry, we are very time poor, and currently and probably for the future, I imagine. So I don't think people get the time necessarily to just have a spare hour to kind of have a little look around at I Am. It's very much more, we have to target what we need it for. I think if we're going back to it, what our experience was at the beginning, if you want me to do that, is like I said, I was captured by it. It worked for me. I thought, yes, this is great. I love the storytelling, and as one of my colleagues describes the little blue people, I thought that was, I think it works really well, and I love the pop culture like references, like with Star Wars, like kind of references and others. One of the things that I think took me aback, and this probably is my own inexperience, is that actually some people didn't like that, and that could be a turn off for some people, and that's a not strictly but quite a generational kind of split on that, is that some people were kind of put off by the cheekiness of it, I guess, and the kind of storytelling part, but like you have to kind of like be consistent, I think, and really reassure people that the content is put together, and obviously safety content is put together largely with kind of IOSH accreditation and CRPD or CPD accreditation as well, and you just have to be quite consistent on that message. But I wasn't expecting that, but that's just what you learn from using it.
Yeah, and I think it's perhaps something that's not necessarily unique to a single provider, but having generational, multi-generational workforce, and I think that's something that's pretty common, not just specific to an industry. You do have people who have got expectations of this is how training should be and this is how training shouldn't be. And I'm also conscious of the fact that you've got different people who are not necessarily in front of screens all day. You've got your drivers, and you're probably having to approach training with them in a slightly different way as well.
Yes, we definitely are. Drivers are quite traditional, even in demographic, so lots of older male drivers is not completely true, but a large proportion are. And those people, generally speaking, want to touch something and use it and practice. And e-learning, if that's what we're talking about now, it doesn't really suit them as well. There are lots of companies out there, and I guess depending on who's listening, there are lots of companies out there that will. I am not being one of them, by the way. Will kind of sell us or try to sell us solutions to problems for mobile workforces like drivers that are e-learning based. And my experience is that's difficult. It's very difficult because you have to get people to people that you don't see very often as well, getting them to interact with their phones and apps is not as easy as it might sound. So I guess you've got to find what fits for your workforce, and for our IT user workforce, e-learning is really good, but it's not so good for our mobile workforce.
So I guess you're sort of running almost not entirely separate training programs, but you do have different approaches. So it's not just rolled out this one thing and then it works. You've got quite a nuanced approach depending on who you're targeting.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'd be the same for a lot of people with anything where you've got kind of manual tasks being carried out. There's going to be a lot more social learning theory, really, when you're out there, kind of like watching from others, learning from others. Where you've got people that are more static and behind screens, then you can approach that in a different way. But I mean, even with the more manual processes, that we are finding now that and for the future, certainly future skills, if you're looking at that, even drivers, and we keep going back to drivers, but they are our majority employee here. Everything now will be in an app. So we're just rolling out a new telematics system which heavily relies on drivers interacting with an app to get feedback on their driving and to undertake short 1 minute learning interventions. So we are going to have to go through that journey, and that might open it up. And I guess as generations change as well, coming to the workforce, is that I think then that may open up how we approach that training. Maybe we do need to change it, but tradition and traditional ways of training are still just as valid for the right people.
Yeah, I think it's probably having that knowledge to know when to use which intervention, I suppose, and not being afraid to rip it up and do different things slightly differently depending on who you're aiming it at.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to look at what your objective is and who your audience is, what your resource is, and how can you best do that rather than just being, oh, we're going to do everything e-learning, or we're going to do everything face to face. You've really, there's so many tools now available, and the use of remote training, e-learning, the internet has really kind of brought on training from where it was, and I think COVID being a massive driver of that.
Yeah. Okay. Just as a reminder for everybody that is listening, if you do have any questions to ask, I don't see any questions as yet. But yeah, if you do have anything that you want to ask or you want to feedback on from what you're hearing, please do drop that into the chat. So we've got some more questions for Steve when we get to the end of our discussion. But just sort of going back to what you were saying there around having that nuanced approach, I guess as well, finding authentic learning as well. So you're not just saying we're rolling out some training, we're getting the tick boxes, we're getting the completion targets, we've got the 100% completion rate on our GDPR training, for example. Whilst that's an indication, it's not every indication. So how do you find that balance between it being a meaningful piece of learning as well?
It's got to be it's difficult. It's not an easy question to answer across the board. And people listening, if you're working in L&D or training, you're going to recognize some of that. Is that some things we train, we struggle to know the impact of that, and other things are easier. But really, that is the question. Is like, we could say that we've trained 100 people, but are 100 people competent in what we've trained, which is actually the real challenge, isn't it? So, and that's why we use different methods. We do assessments, we do catch ups, we do product of work on some of the interventions that we put in as well. Even using a blended learning approach is one way of not starting from scratch. So, for example, we do a root cause analysis course internally that is instructor led, but via Teams. But before attending that course, the delegates have to complete a couple of the IAM e-learning courses, and they also need to bring along an example of either a process or an incident or a trend that they'd want to look at root cause analysis in. And then our course is about extracting their knowledge and honing their skill on the example that they have. And I think that helps us to make that more authentic than just somebody coming along, listening to us for an hour and then returning back to their desk.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And I guess that's where the I am content works quite nicely, because it's building that structure for you without necessarily making, it just eases that process that you're doing when you're sort of thinking about how it works at Gregory. You've got various different approaches to plug in and build those pathways out as you need them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's mostly kind of complements what we're doing rather than completely completing the task. If manual handling is an interesting example, we wouldn't use the manual handling e-learning for anybody that did regular manual handling, but we do use it for our IT users who don't do so much manual handling, because it kind of fits that. And like I said, we do use it for kind of pre-course blended courses and awareness, and as sometimes a first level of intervention for a wider audience before maybe doing a more specialized course for less people. Yeah,
makes sense. Okay, the question that I know that you have been dreading in the background this whole time, Steve, is I want to know about a time where you've tried something with rolling out some kind of training or some kind of program, and it's either not gone well and what you've learned from it. And I'm also going to say what's gone well, so you can couple it with that if you need it.
Okay. Right. Okay. So I was thinking about this a little, and I think to keep it like relevant for the content that we're talking about, I think, in all honesty, I think actually trying to introduce and implement e-learning, so trying to kind of force that through large groups of people, um, it didn't go so well, because it becomes, well, it either doesn't get done, so you end up chasing it
Hmm.
all the time, or people do it just to tick the box and don't really get anything from it, just purely see it as a, oh, I've had to do this, I've done it, but I haven't really. That's starting off on the wrong foot as well. So I think
Hmm.
our initial kind of rollout of using e-learning could have been better. But what did we learn from it? I learned that however much I might enjoy something, not everybody else does, and actually try to be much more targeted with it and make it, embed it within a larger structure. And I'm sure lots of people make these mistakes, and I certainly think lots of people probably did when there was lots of availability of e-learning, is to think that that's going to solve all our problems. It's kind of a bit like car manufacturers taking away actual buttons in cars. Brilliant idea, saves them lots of money, and it's all fancy. But actually, everybody moans they want they want their buttons back, so you have to give them some buttons back. So it's just like that's that idea of like, oh, but this is great. Let's put it all in. It's
Yeah.
going to do loads of this. And actually, starting then to think, actually, we really need to think about refining that and doing it in a more controlled way to
Yeah.
fill gaps that we can fill with it.
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. And
Okay.
tell me about your proudest thing then. So what are you most proud of that you've rolled out over the last 4 years?
What am I most proud of? I mean, there's lots of things, I suppose. To be honest with you, it's not even a thing. And for me, it's when I see training happening. That is my proudest moment. Is when do I see training happening? I could be literally going into a transport office somewhere around the country, and somebody is doing one of our IAM courses, or one of the e-learning courses that we make, and you very generously host on IAM as well, which we could always touch on if you need to. I love that. Or if I see one of our trainers with a classroom of people training a CPC course or training out some safe systems of work, that's the thing I'm always proud of, is that why did I do training? Why do we do training? We do this because we want to help employees able to do their job as well as they can, be as safe as they can, be as compliant for the company, and that's for me the proudest part, and that's what I always enjoyed as a driver, back 20 odd years ago now. Is I remember the good trainers, I remember the people that taught me things that I've remembered ever since, and that's the thing that makes me proudest.
I love that. I think that sort of gets to the heart of it. I think with everything is remembering at the end of the day, you are putting information in front of people to help them do their jobs better, help them do their job safely, and generally thrive. I think that's probably
Yeah,
the thing that you are, you're ultimately aiming to do, right? Is make the workplace an enjoyable place for people to do great things in whatever
yeah,
capacity
yeah,
that they're there for. Um,
absolutely.
okay, well, I've got one last question for you, and then I can see there is a question already, but we might have to
Okay, so
you might have to tell me your favorite IAM course in a minute, Steve.
I could tell
But
you my favorite and my least favorite if you wish. There's only one, obviously.
of course, out of 400.
Yeah.
Um, but we'll start with the last question that I had is what are you looking forward to? So for the next 12 months, what are you looking forward to doing or focusing on?
Okay. What am I looking for? Well, a few things, but I think the one thing is away from the e-learning. Actually, is I'm looking forward to. We are introducing a new course, which is old technology as such. So it's getting back into cabs with 3 drivers teaching defensive driving. That's what I'm really looking forward to. We haven't done it for a number of years, and we were asked to look at a problem, which is fuel efficiency and accident or road risk, accident damage claims and injury. So we asked to look at that problem, and the answer is the same as it was 20 years ago. Go out and help teach, coach drivers to drive in the most defensive, fuel efficient manner. So I'm really looking forward to that, because we are going to start doing that again.
That sounds quite fun as well.
It is. It's great. It's you're not doing, like the best part of lorry driving is driving. No one likes doing the delivery part. So it's just a day of driving with no deliveries or collections. So it's great.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time, Steve. We've got a couple of questions.
Okay.
I think the first one is from Jade, and it's for me, but it's around, is the content available to download as a SCORM or embed into an LMS? And I think the answer is both. So we have an LMS, which is what you use, Steve. You use our hosted service. Just if you could touch on that very high level, how do you find using our LMS?
Great. We first should have said this, actually, is that we are not blessed with an LMS, so we're very analog at the moment, and we hopefully have one in our pipeline very soon. But IAM's LMS has been great, and I should say that IAM are brilliant at working with us for our wacky ideas and how to develop it a little bit better for us. So yes, brilliant.
Cool. So that is one option, and as Steve said, we work together. It's a free option that we host for people that need it. But no, we offer all of our SCORM content also in a wrapper format. So if you have your own LMS, and as Steve, you move to your new LMS, you can take your IAM content with you. But yeah, so there's options there depending on what you need. And I've got a couple ones. So next one is from another Steve, and he is asking, with the non-e-learning, how do you manage the ROI expectations? Where is the result that isn't that immediate figurative response?
Oh, ROI. These are the
ROI,
questions you dread.
always the ROI. Yeah.
Yeah. It's extremely difficult, I think, for anybody that works in like the day-to-day nitty-gritties of training. It's always very difficult, and it's the question that you dread in lots of ways, because sometimes there's not a direct ROI from the investment you're making. So if I use the example of the in-cab training, that's an investment of £50,000 a year just into lorries to carry out that training. However, if we improve our MPG across our business by 0.1, which is not very much, then that has a direct impact on our business of £200,000 to £300,000. So, and that doesn't even come into, we're not even talking about damage and accidents that we have. So our ROI, it's very difficult to directly link it unless you went down to the granular level of this driver has, and we can do that by the way a little bit, but this driver has attended a course, and prior to the course they scored this on their telematics, after the course they scored that on their telematics, and you're trying to kind of convert that into a fuel saving or road risk reduction. So it depends what you're talking about in terms of measures, but that's for us, that is our ROI. But yeah, it's a constant battle. Like training is the first cost that gets looked at in a business that is looking to make cost reductions. So we do have to regularly show our worth. Hopefully that answers your question, Steve.
I think that's important as well. I think given what we've seen across L&D in the landscape where the budgets are being challenged, I think the ROI question has always been there, but has become more and more pertinent. And to your point, it's always about that figuring out how you demonstrate something that's not necessarily a direct tangible. Yes. Yeah.
It's tricky, isn't it? You need a control group where you take away training from some people and just see what their return on investment is. Maybe we'll all be out of jobs, so we don't need us. But I don't think
that.
Doubt it very much.
George has asked, what should we start seeing if a learning culture is working or changing? So I suppose when you were obviously starting from scratch and you were starting to build that learning culture out, what were you noticing to begin with? What were you seeing?
That's another good question, isn't it? So you would, again, depends what you work in. We would see it in, um, if we talk e-learning, maybe in particular, we're talking about audit, so internal and external. So we have some external accreditations, usually quality accreditations, and we may see less corrective actions from that. So we're hopefully seeing more product or more knowledge in our operational part of our business, where the audits are then finding that evidence of improvement. That probably be one of the main ones. Less queries on certain things. Depends what you're trying to train really from it.
I think that's probably the right question, is depending on what your focus is. And I would always say when you're building a learning culture, it's slow and steady is the right approach. I think you're not wanting to roll out or change everything in one go because you'll overwhelm your workforce, and you will be finding that people don't know what training they need to focus on and how you're doing that. So I think perhaps doing some kind of training audit or learning or some kind of audit across the business of what are the key problems we are trying to solve by rolling this training out, not just let's have some training, everybody.
That's the mistake, isn't it? What's the purpose? How does it align to your organizational goals and objectives?
Yeah.
What is it you're trying to achieve, and then we'll work out like how to achieve it and how do we measure it. If you don't know your learning objectives, you're just throwing something because you think which is probably what we do with e-learning, to be fair, to start with. You're just throwing it because you've got it. Not always the best approach.
No, and I think some of the most successful launches I've seen outside of yours, obviously, um, is where people have been really intentional with how they've done it. So they've maybe just started with one course of, like, maybe they're seeing loads of slips, trips, and falls in their workforce or their factory or wherever it is. So they're really focusing on targeting that, and perhaps using our course as part of that, and then seeing that it could be that actually they're noticing that things that logs go up to begin with because people actually now know that they have to log it, so they're sort of seeing that process and that involvement. So seeing something go up isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's about just demonstrating that knowledge and that transfer, where it's becoming part of the process, as part of that.
That's a good point. I mean, actually, it's a good point. If we've had longer to talk, knowledge transfer, that's a fascinating subject, but maybe we're not quite there today. But the other thing, you're absolutely right, is you invest a significant amount of money in a system like I am, and it links back to the ROI. So I don't know, however many thousands of pounds we pay for the amount of people we use for I am. You've got 300 courses. If you're just going to concentrate on one course, 400, sorry. Okay, 300 when we started. And if you're going to concentrate on one course, you have got that in the back of your mind as I'm paying a lot of money for that one course. And that's a pressure, isn't it, on those people that are implementing it.
Definitely. And I think, there's definitely a balance to be struck there between obviously making sure that you're getting your return on investment, but also doing it in a meaningful way, so you're not overwhelming your staff at the same time. We could get into transfer.
Knowledge transfer of knowledge, learning transfer, however you want to call it. Go and read a book, The 12 Levers of Knowledge Transfer. Amazing book.
There we go. Always love a book recommendation. Okay, I've got another question from Donna, and I guess it kind of builds on what we've been talking about already, actually, where she's asking, how did you change the culture within the driver population, who are typically non-PC enabled, to complete e-learning courses? Now, I know it's not as used, I know that much, but how do you perhaps use it a little bit in terms of your non-PC staff?
Great difficulty. It may not be able to answer that question fully in terms of e-learning. What I would say, this is all about change, right? So prior to 2020, and I've talked about driver CPC courses here. I don't know if you may or may not understand, but it's a compulsory 35 hours worth of training every 5 years, 7-year course, basically 5 7-hour courses. Prior to 2020, everybody came to a classroom and they had a guy stood at the front usually who would teach a course for 7 hours. Well, that changed with COVID, and we then started delivering these courses remotely online. We'd never done it before. And to start with, it was very, very difficult because drivers being of that, mostly of an average driver, like 53, probably a guy, probably not that computer savvy, which is why they want to be lorry drivers. Now they have to join a Teams call to go on a CPC course, potentially from home. And that was really hard. Like, we were phoning people constantly and trying to help. I became an IT technician, basically, of getting people online.
Mm-hmm.
But now, 2026, not really too much of an issue because people have changed their behavior, their attitude probably towards it as well, their capability as well. And I think that's what we now need to go through in terms of our use of mobile apps and e-learning, is actually really biting the bullet and kind of doing a hypercare on it. And just it takes a long time to change that culture.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I really answered your question very well there, but that's the thing I could probably relate most in terms of drivers.
Yeah, and I think your point there is that taking that step back, and it's about making sure that people understand how to use the new systems and the new processes. It might seem like an obvious thing, oh, just join a Teams call if you're used to being on a computer, but just, yeah, I guess it's like all training, right? Not making assumptions that people know how to get to where they need to get to, and ensuring that the support is built in to get there.
Understand your people. I mean,
Understand your people.
Understand your people. You're talking, if you're talking to lorry drivers who may be very similar to, I don't know, bricklayers or someone else, bakers, I don't know. Like, they will say to you, I chose to be a lorry driver, so I didn't have to work on a computer. That is the type of thing that you will hear. So you have to understand that, be empathetic, and help, because actually a lot of the time it's just fear. It's not that they can't or don't want to. They're afraid of it. They're afraid of pressing on a button. They're afraid of having to speak on a Teams call in front of 20 people. It's just understanding people, and that's hard, isn't it, when you're trying to do that across a big organization with hundreds, if not thousands of people.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I've seen other similar customers in a similar industry to you use our e-learning training as part of a classroom-based approach as well. So using the 15-minute course, but watching it together in a classroom as well, to just from the beginning. So this is how it works. This is the system, and obviously sort of blending those two approaches of how people have been used to doing training to how you're sort of training them to go into that training. So I guess it's sort of a building on what you said there as well, in that it's building on what they know in a way that helps them approach things without overwhelming them.
That's very good. We don't do that, and we talked about it before, and that's something we may well start to do.
Well, yes, and I think it's just about trialing it. Not everything's going to work for every different industry. Everybody's got their own unique set of staff, set of people, set of culture.
Yeah, of course.
So it's just about not being afraid to try things, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, we can't see who's on the call today, which is very strange for a call like this. So, but it's really nice to. I don't know if it's nice to listen to me, to be honest, but it's nice to have those conversations with people, not always in the same industry, but that are trying to do learning at this type of organization. And how do you do that, and how do you do this? And I love learning things from different people. And to be, I am you've been very good at helping us, and you will say, oh, maybe somebody has done it like this. Have you thought about that? As actually, no, I haven't thought about that. That's a very good idea. So the more forums where we can talk to each other, I think the better. I've got no, it's not a secret what we do. It's pretty straightforward, to be honest.
Good. Well, we have come to the end of the questions. So I'm going to take you up on that offer and say, if anybody wants to talk to Steve, you can find him on LinkedIn. So please send him a message with any other questions you might think. Likewise, if you want to talk about anything I am learning, I am also on LinkedIn. So please get in touch. And I would, I can answer any questions. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining. If you do want to know anything more about I Am Learning, we've got a website, and yeah, we can reach out to you directly if you want to pop a note in the chat that you want to know more. But yes, thank you so much, Steve. It has been really insightful. I think it's always really nice when somebody's generous enough to say, hey, look, this is how we do it, warts and all. It's not always perfect, but we're getting there. Yeah, and thank you everybody who's come along and joined and asked some really great questions. I think they've been some very insightful things to make you think there.
Yes, ROI will always make me think.
But yeah, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, everybody. And yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you, everybody.